What's up, everybody? Saw Scott's face. That's the first time he saw the card. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mack Flash 5, the show where we like to list our top 5 favorite movies fitting a certain topic or subject. And our topic is not top 5 movie finales, the ends of sagas or trilogies or franchises. It's not the top 5 finales of a movie. This is the final episode of the Mack Flash 5 for the foreseeable future. Never say never.
Yeah. That's what they said. On this weekend, we never thought we'd see Toby as Spider-Man again or Keaton as Batman, and here we are, guys.
Like the Motley Crue's last tour.
Yeah.
Motley Crue's final tour. This is it.
Rolling Stones' final tour.
Yeah, exactly.
But yes, for the foreseeable future, there have been a couple of things we want to work on aside from this, and one of them being the return of the Movie Trivia Championship. I hope to get that up and running again. We're here with the two champions of their respective divisions. He's got
my belt's in a case downstairs in my truck. I leave it on a pillow every day. I would have gotten it.
Scott and I fired up pushing 10 for the award season, so expect more episodes of that to come.
We got award movies to watch.
Yes.
Oh man, I got so many movies to watch.
We'll talk about that off screen, about a couple of movies that I'm upset with about that. And who knows, like new shows. I'm sure we all have ideas for new shows, and for the year 2022 and beyond, we hope to get new content up and running for the channel. But until then, we have to turn this one off, and the title is finale, but we each have a top 5 list, and it's top 5. I think we'll go around and tell us what our categories are, because we said to each other, it's the last one. Let's do whatever we want. Mm-hmm. I'm going to kick things off. My top 5 are actually 4 number ones. I'll just remind everybody how the show works. After we decide on a topic, we all go our separate ways and return with and write out our top 5 list fitting a certain topic. Normally, we do 3 in which we discuss at length, and then have 2 honorable mentions. This time we'll talk about all 5, but I think our number 2, I'm not sure if it's the same for everybody. We will have honorable mentions near the end of our list. We'll get to that as it unfolds. But my top 5 are actually 5 number 1s. I went with the number 1 thing, movies or things that I haven't gotten to use or have wanted to use or something like that. So my number 5 for this list is my number 1 Spielberg movie that I haven't discussed yet. I'm a huge Spielberg fan. Usually his movies make an appearance on my list more often than not. But the one movie I couldn't place yet until now is Hook.
Oh yeah. Looky, we got Hooky.
I didn't know what you used already. But great. I thought maybe you would have. This is awesome. This is a good one.
Bangarang, baby.
It is the 2021 is the 30th anniversary year.
December, don't tell me that.
Yeah, December 11th, I think. And I'm hoping, I think they would have announced it already because Hook, aside from being almost an instant classic, especially for people our age and kids of the 90s for sure. It had a huge toy line, McDonald's Happy Meals. It was very collectible merchandise came out with this, but I haven't seen an announcement for Funko Pops. It's the 30th anniversary. I thought maybe a flood of
Well,
Hook
you'd think
and
that they
Pan
would.
and Rufio Funko Pops that have
Yeah,
hit the shelves.
Rufio is made for a Funko Pop.
Yes.
Actually, Hook and Rufio are like custom made for Funko Pops.
Rufio
Like,
was the Chase action figure when the toy line first went out. For anyone who hasn't seen, it's the story of a grown-up Peter Pan played by Robin Williams, who has left Neverland for 20 or more years and is now a lawyer. He's forgotten his life in Neverland, and Wendy, the Wendy of the storybooks and everything, has gotten old. Played by Maggie Smith, who while acting in this movie is not even 60 years old, but they made her up to look similar to what Maggie Smith looks like today. Peter's kids have been kidnapped by Captain Hook, and he is kidnapped. Well, not kidnapped. Tinkerbell comes and, played by Julia Roberts, takes him to Neverland to save his kids. His amnesia continues as he meets Hook again. He meets the Lost Boys again. They try to jog his memory. Eventually, that happens. He fights Hook, rescues his kids, and they return back home to Earth, and in this case, the city of London, I'm pretty sure. Aside from the adventure of the movie that is, the soundtrack, the score is phenomenal. This is probably, as far as John Williams, Spielberg scores, top 5. It's probably top 10 John Williams all time. But yeah, Hook is a movie I never thought I'd get to have it on a list, because as far as other categories are concerned, it probably wouldn't make it. So I made up a category on my own. A Spielberg movie I haven't talked about yet. The number 1 on that list is Hook.
It's great. That's a great way you did. Do you have anything you want to talk about Hook? I like anything else. I think it's great too. It's one I haven't really revisited, but as far as like the arrested development of Peter's aging into adulthood and then rediscovering himself. Now Robbins perfect for it, and Spielberg is the perfect guy to do that. That's kind of like the transitioning into, adulthood almost for Steven Spielberg, because he's coming off Last Crusade, which is a father and son story, more adult story, into this, and then ultimately into Schindler's List, Jurassic Park, and then he's off on a new phase of his career.
That's right.
So that's like the great buffer of the old melding of the whimsical with like the more heavy story to it. So neat.
Well, it's got and it's got some really heartfelt to it near the end. It's obviously really funny too. I always used to laugh when I was younger about I lost me marbles, and then he ends up finding his bag of marbles at the end, and we're like that. It used to always get me every time I used to watch it. Have a good laugh about that. But yeah, it's definitely a favorite, childhood favorite. I guess I wasn't a child when it came out, but child
at heart. Child at heart, like Peter.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a good pick.
Cool. So I kind of did exactly what you did too when we were talking and stuff. I keep all my notes for this whole year on Word documents. So I have everything we did in order. What I do is when we get a category, I'll put 20 movies in it, and then I siphon through those movies, and then I keep track of the films that I used. So everything else you can scroll back from our very first one that never aired of films about me, sports films, animated, onto this. But then I have possible topics for the future, and I had about 6 others that we would have done for next year. But the one that I would have recommended next certainly would have been political films. You guys know me. My love is American presidential elections. I love all things American politics, especially leading up to nomination season into election season. So certainly for me, having a category of political films or presidential films or something like that would have been something I would have wanted to do next year. So with that said, like you did, I am going to present my number 1 for that. And while there's lots of films that I could have, certainly you guys know what a Redford fan I am. His 70s presidential film probably comes in number 2 to something a little bit more recent within the last decade. And my number 1 political film would be 2011's The Ides of March.
Ooh.
Starring Ryan Gosling.
Cool.
Ryan Gosling plays a campaign manager. Stephen Myers, he plays the campaign manager for Democratic nominee George Clooney. Quite simply, this is probably one of my favorite posters of all time. I remember seeing this poster when the movie was coming out going, good Lord, what an incredible poster to convey the film, right? Gosling as the man behind the man, the Time magazine folded so they echo both sides of their face. So you know it's going to kind of be that tete-a-tete as the film unfolds. And effectively, this is a season of House of Cards and The West Wing kind of wrapped together to tell a 2-hour story about, Ryan Gosling being the campaign manager for Clooney. His senior advisor is Philip Seymour Hoffman, deep cast of people, Paul Giamatti. Jeffrey Wright plays a senator whose votes they need to secure the nomination. And as it goes, there's some incredible drama with an intern, Evan Rachel Wood, who falls for Gosling, but you find out she maybe had a thing with Clooney, and Clooney's, as the spotless nominee, idealistic man of the left of the future isn't as spotless as he would want people to believe, which is, again, time and time and time again in politics. And in this, it's the movie's laid out kind of like a chessboard, and you see everyone's moves, and you see Giamatti being the rival, trying to recruit Gosling, and the implications that has. And all the while, Marissa Tomei, who I couldn't get here, she plays like a reporter who's kind of questioning Gosling. And it's got a really cool veneer, a really like sexy side of it. I don't know if politics is ever that sexy with Gosling and Clooney and Tomei and people like that, but there's incredible weighty scenes. And as the dominoes start to fall and the power plays shift and everything, it leads to a really tense last 10, 15 minutes. And again, one of my favorite endings in film, in any of them, is when Gosling's walking with Marissa Tomei, and he's been appointed, the senior advisor, and how he's kind of shifted to the top of his proverbial food chain and hitched his wagon to Clooney, and everybody gets what they want. And he's walking through this dark, dark corridor as, there's a Clooney speech in the background. And as he's getting prepped up for a CNN interview, and they say, we're going to go to the senior advisor, Stephen Meyer, to tell us how all this nomination unfolded. And we, the people, are not going to hear the true story of what just happened for the last 2 hours in the film. And that's much like politics is. So for the fact that I am a nut when it comes to election coverage, I listen to Pod Save America. I watch Showtime's The Circus regularly. My number one political film would have been the George Clooney directed 2011 film, The Ides of March.
I recently found a Blu-ray of that at a secondhand store. I haven't watched it yet. We were taught when we did Pushing 10, Clooney's recent movie, The Tender Bar, has been nominated for a Golden Globe with Ben Affleck's supporting actor performance. So I was thinking, similar to my Ridley Scott marathon, Clooney's filmography as a director is like what? 4?
Yeah, he's got a little bit more. He's probably got 8.
Is it 8? So
he probably, if I say, because he also did Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, he did Monuments Men, he did things like that. So there's probably about 6 to 8 films. I don't think there'd be more than that. So a couple
more I'll have to buy, but that marathon will certainly happen soon.
Of course, Monuments Men, probably one of my favorite trailers of all time. Movie. Horrible. Oh, I didn't think it was good. I saw it once in theaters. I was like, I don't understand this movie.
That is 100% a Matt movie for sure. That is
that movie. Trailer is set to like what the ping pong. Sean Lee's the ping pong. That boom, dun dun. That's the sickest trailer. But that movie I could not get behind. I only watched it once, but I remember he was on a bit of a cold spell. But Tender Bar looks great. And he certainly has some high highs. So yeah, man, that's you twist my arm on a Clooney rewatch. But my favorite of his by far is Ides of March.
All right, so move on to my top 5. My top 5, I went with just basically 5 movies that I would have wanted to talk about had we continued. And a lot of these would be tough to fit on certain lists. I don't know what a lot of these they would go on, to be honest. So it's kind of nice because like these would all be number ones in some category. I don't know what category, but they
would be number one because I really like them. This would be number 1 at.
Yeah. I don't. To be honest, I mean, I don't know. I will figure it out. But anyway, these are 5 movies that I love, that I wanted to get on the show, and never worked out to get on the show. So we're gonna go. This would be a number 1 on some list, but it's going to be number 5 on this list. It is from 1985. It is directed by one of my favorite directors, which is Terry Gilliam, and it is Brazil. This is a movie that came out when I was a kid, and it would be showed on TV all the time. It was constantly on TV, and I watched it, and but I'd seen Time Bandits before that, and Time Bandits was one that I really, really loved. And I kind of figured out that it was the same guy who did both, because it was both really weird, and they had the Monty Python guys in it. This one has Michael Palin in it. And the main character is played by Jonathan Pryce, who it's basically in this futuristic world, but it's not really futuristic. It's kind of like almost like noir, and everything is kind of old timey, but everything looks like it's the future, but it's not really the future. And it's a bureaucratic nightmare, is what Terry Gilliam describes as. Everything is you have to fill out forms to do everything all the time, and he works in this office and is bogged down, and he has these fantasy adventures. And in this poster here, he goes on these fantasy adventures, flying in this like suit of armor, and he has this fantasy girl. This is Jonathan Pryce, and that's Michael Palin, who he meets up with time to time. And like I said, they kind of dress all like noir, film noirish, in this like kind of futuristic world, but again not. And they have like old fashioned typewriters, and like a true Terry Gilliam style. Like everything is just very unique and very weird. And as a kid, I ate it up. I was all about it. And so now that I watch it when I'm older, now that I'm an adult, I get it so much more, and I understand what he's trying to accomplish here with it. And it's just talking about capitalism, and just bureaucracy in general. It's so much more biting now that I'm an adult, and I can understand it more than when I was a kid, where I loved it because it was super weird. You have and on top of it, you have you have a laundry list of people in it. It's Katherine Hellman, from Who's the Boss fame, who plays his mother, who throughout the movie is getting plastic surgery and keeps getting younger and younger. As Jim Broadbent in the background, who's the plastic surgeon. You have Ian Holm, who's his boss. You have Bob Hoskins, who's in Central Services, who's one of the kind of the bad guys of the movie, along with another guy. And a very funny role. Like I said, Michael Palin's in it, and of course, one of the other very famous people in there is Bob De Niro, who shows up as a terrorist's repairman. He Central Services is in charge of repairing all of things that go on in people's houses, and they always end up screwing it up. So in comes the hero, Robert De Niro, to fix the AC in people's houses he has guns. He has a handgun, and he busts through the ceiling. It's very funny, and also very silly, but also it's a very great satire, especially for the time. It's even more so now than it was back then. A lot of people didn't really get it then, and like especially the studio executives didn't know what to make of it, and they wanted to make this have him cut it down. And so famously with this movie, he fought to have his cut of the movie, and it's one of the very few times when the director won out. And so what you saw in the theater and what you saw everywhere is what Terry Gilliam wanted you to see. However, there was one of the studio executives that he fought tooth and nail with, made his own cut, and it is referred to as the love eternal, or love wins cut. And it was what was shown every once in a while on TV, and it's about half an hour shorter, and it is awful. and people and like it is like beyond like people make fun of it because it's really bad, like it's a really bad version of it. They take all of the like satire out of it and like all of the things that make it like biting and like edgy and it just make it about like basically a love story between Kim Greist and Jonathan Pryce. And what's I think is funny about it is the Criterion Blu-ray has that version, even though it's a crap version, and it's the thing, it has that version on the Criterion, almost as if to say, see, like it's Terry Gilliam saying, like, look, I was right. Like, this sucks. This is what they wanted to put out, and it sucks. This is my version, and it's a masterpiece. And
I would love to see that version with Terry Gilliam doing like commentary about how much it sucks for the hour
it
and a
might
half
actually
or
be
2
on there.
hour
I
one.
haven't listened to the commentary, but I bet you it's on there because that's Terry Gilliam. Terry Gilliam would make that commentary on that thing, and you know, and like he would probably point out all the things that they cut out, and like, well, here's where they cut out this super important scene that you know has something to do with this, and it's like I just love that whole backstory too. Like that was one of the things when I got the Criterion that you know I found out about as all this like behind the scenes stuff. And Terry Gilliam is a nut job. Like he is famously like super hard to work with because he's so visual and so like artistic that he can't convey his a lot of times he can't convey his vision to his cast and crew, and so he's famously hard to work with, but at the same time he creates these like insanely beautiful and crazy and weird movies that I just love. I just love his style and things. So yeah, number 5, Brazil.
Is this your number 1 Terry Gilliam movie?
Yes.
There you
Wow.
go. Found
For
it.
sure,
Yeah,
for sure. So if we did Terry Gilliam, like it'd be hard pressed between that and, like I said, Time Bandits. Time Bandits was my first real experience with it, and Time Bandits I watched a ton when I was a kid. It was when I watched, but yeah, Brazil. It's just a flawless movie.
Cool. Yeah, a little
Okay.
bit much. When I was doing my research in high school, I'll say one little quick thing. This was always on one of the lists of like the twisted, most like sadistic films of all time. Like,
Well, it's got a pretty crazy end. Yeah, it's got a really
you
sad
see the
and depressing
face with
ending.
her. I remember being like 13 and going through, and I'm like
Yeah.
Jacob's Ladder's on there, and this and stuff like that, and like, and then I managed to get through like a lot of the digestible ones. But to me, I've never seen Brazil, but I remember it's always one of the ones that's like pretty dialed up, and it's like pretty intense. So I haven't seen it, but that's cool.
It's
that
honestly, it's
image
not that
with the
Yeah,
that image with the stretched out face is next to the title in every like movie encyclopedia. You go to Brazil, and the description, that picture is right next to it.
Well, and it like that. To be honest, like that's not even a disturbing scene. It's a like played as comedy. Like the only thing that's really like disturbing is kind of the ending because it's on a down note. But the rest of it is like a lot of it is funny. But like I said, it's very, if you start like picking it apart, it's very biting satire, which is what Terry Gilliam is really good at, is having this entertainment but then having that undertones of satire, and especially going even back to his Monty Python days with his animations and all that kind of stuff, which I always loved.
Okay. For my number 4, I wanted to do something different. Number 4 on this list, but one of my favorite episodes that we did was our favorite movie props. And in the honorable mentions section of that episode, I talked about the 3 movie props I would like to add to my collection. One was the amp from Spinal Tap that goes up to 11. Another was the painting of the old man with the 2 dogs from Goodfellas.
Yeah.
And my number 1 from that list was something I got to acquire, Rocky's championship belt from the Rocky series. So my number 4 is my number 1 movie prop that I've wanted to own for a while, Rocky's championship belt. I love this thing. I got this off Etsy, and it is so heavy.
That's so funny you say that, because look what's sitting on my desk right now, the Rocky necklace. I swear to God, I bought this so when the pops come out, that's going to dangle on that. So you and I, we have Rocky props right now.
Yes, when the pops come out. I'm getting Rocky wearing the belt, and I'm putting it right next to it in my case here.
That's cool, man.
The belt makes its debut in Rocky 2. It's not in Rocky 1. It was probably too expensive to make, and that was a very low budget movie, and was probably the first clue that Rocky wasn't going to win that fight. The fact that Apollo Creed didn't even bring a belt to the ring. He does beat Apollo Creed in Rocky 2, and he gets to hoist it above his head. Adrian, I did it. Amazing scene. In Rocky 3, it's the MacGuffin. Rocky is the champion. He's defended it 10 times. He gets to the ring with Clubber Lang. Clubber Lang beats him. He wears it for a short time. Rocky beats him at the end. In Rocky 4, it makes an appearance prominently at Apollo Creed's funeral, when Rocky gets to place it on Apollo's casket. And in Rocky 5, Tommy Gunn gets to win his replica of the belt because the press is on him about how the guy he beat, Herb Cain, was a paper champion, and your belt doesn't mean anything to anybody. Sorry, champ. So that's it.
Awesome. That's cool. That's cool. You own that. Cool. Okay. So my number 4, another category I was going to recommend. And we said this, I think I said this more recently in a group chat. I said something like, wouldn't it be funny to do a list on films that kind of describe or express like your daily jobs? We all have different jobs that we do, and to come up with a list of movies for your profession would be fun. And we could talk about different movies where a character has the same profession you do, or something is central to the plot point of that. Maybe not to do an exact list, but it got me thinking about my personal one. So I'm a financial guy. I'm in sales. I've been in sales my entire life. I've worked for the Winter Spitfire selling tickets. And then I did advertising, I did commercials, and now I do insurance and investments and stuff like that. So I'm like, that would be fun. My number 4 can definitely be something that reflects that. Now I thought, I'm like, oh, okay, Wolf of Wall Street's pretty cool. There's a lot of cold calling in that and stuff, but I'm like, it's a little ramped up, and I don't really partake in Quaaludes and mounds of cocaine like Jordan Belfort does. My number 2, I thought maybe Pursuit of Happiness. I'll get a Will Smith movie on. I have no Will Smiths, kind of like Matt did with Spielberg. I'm like, it only feels right, but ultimately I didn't want to lie to myself as being the last show. So with my number 1, I had to be honest. It's a movie that I most assuredly wanted to get on the list earlier, and I'm so happy to. Is this everyone? All but one. Well, I'm going anyways. Put that coffee down. My number 4 is Glengarry Glen Ross, because coffee is for closers, and I'm not going to drink that till I close this out. Glengarry Glen Ross, based David Mamet wrote the play, and this film is adapted from the Broadway play directed by James Foley, with an all-stellar cast. Al Pacino, Kevin Spacey, Jack Lemmon, Ed Harris, Alan Arkin, and the primary real estate firm. They sell land. It's kind of what they're always going for leads, the Glengarry leads, and the Glen Ross estates. There's 2 batches of land that they're selling, and you don't really know. It's probably timeshares or something like that. But basically, the whole premise takes place in the office that they have, or the bar across the street, and kind of in phone booths amongst the way, and cars set across a rainy evening. I was going to put this on the film set in under 24 hours. It actually takes place over 2 days. So it starts the first day through the night, and then a little bit into the next day as well too. But with this film, it's just, it's quite simply one of the ones that probably best echoes what the daily life is like for salesmen and salespeople and people who are chasing leads. Now it's a movie, it's a play, it's dialed up to 11. It's pretty intense, leading the cast to refer to it as death of a fucking salesman while they were filming it, because of the excessive use of the F word and the the subject matter and how angry everybody is. But it's just it's a film it's a tight hour 40. It's a mystery, because what happens is Alec Baldwin comes in, he delivers an all-time heat check performance. It's the only difference from the play to the film is this powerhouse ABC always be closing speech that he gives to pep all the salespeople up, because he's set from home office from Mitch and Murray, and what it is Kevin Spacey. What?
No, Kevin Smith lifts that speech for Jay and Silent Bob reboot, and he says it to the Klansmen. And at the end, Chris Jericho as the Klansman, Who the fuck are Mitch and Murray?
Yeah, that's great. And Kevin Spacey runs the brokerage and those guys. So there's leads, and ultimately, as it's going, Ed Harris has the idea to steal the leads and sell them to a rival company, and then because the leads that they get are shit and they're overworked and they don't know what to do, and they can sell, but they don't know who to sell to, and all this, all stuff people in my profession go through on a normal basis. And there's cool salespeople, who have different tactics, like Pacino. There's lifers that have been there forever that just want to get back to the glory, like Lemon, and then guys in between as well too, like Arkin and Harris. And ultimately, you find out what happens to the leads as they're being investigated at the next morning, and who ended up stealing them, and it all kind of unfolds. But because it's adapted from a play, it's very long and talky as far as the long scenes go, and the tracking shots, and it's basically adapted into that. And the last thing of this, in 1992, it was Pacino's only got one Oscar nom, didn't get anything for screenplay, anything for directing, anything. Pacino got one supporting nom, the lone nomination from this film, made him a double nominee that year because he also got nominated for Scent of a Woman. I think he was high on his own supply that year. Lemon is outstanding in this film. If anybody was going to get it, Lemon should have won the Oscar for this instead of Pacino getting the nomination. Pacino has like maybe a quarter screen time. Lemon's the through line of the whole thing. Yeah. He is unbelievable as Shelley Levine, the machine. But I would say, so my number 4, because if we were going to do a list on films that echo your daily profession, again, albeit not as intense as this, but how can you not love Glenn Ross?
Yeah, I normally I don't love movies that are based on a play, because it always feels like a play, and like you said, it's very talky. A lot of like one sets, and there's not a lot of like even movement and stuff like that. But this is a murderer's row of actors who all nail their stuff.
And that's the thing. They elevate it. These are all, every single person on this list is an Academy Award nominee.
Absolutely.
The only one who wasn't was Jonathan Pryce, who has a very meek, timid part. He got an Oscar nomination 2 years ago. So every single person in it, aside from the detective, who's actually Mike Novak from 24 in a small cameo, but all the main cast members with like legitimate speaking lines are either Academy Award winners or nominees.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like I think I saw this and 12 Angry Men at around the same time when I was younger, and it just made me like fall in love with Jack Lemmon. Like, and you're talking up Jack Lemmon. This is what nailed it for me for Jack Lemmon, and I went on a Jack Lemmon binge. I'd previously only known him for like really goofy stuff, like Some Like It Hot, and a lot of his like Grumpy Old Man, So a lot of like really goofy stuff. So like that's kind of what I knew him for. So like this, and like I said, that, and like even like I think I watched China Syndrome, and like I was just like, holy crap, Jack Lemmon is
one of the greatest leading men we've ever had.
He's unbelievable. So
but the cool thing too at this too, and a little microcosm of Kevin Spacey, Free Spacey. You can't deny there was a time when Spacey was anointed as the next Jack Lemmon. They've acknowledged it, and they kind of have the mannerisms, they have the looks, they have the same kind of cadence on film, and they have great tete-a-tete scenes where they go at each other. They have a very antagonistic relationship, but there are scenes where they're looking at each other and talking, and then Spacey has a line at the end when he has to, the comeuppance for Lemmon's character. But you look at that and go, wow, this is a great passing of the torch too, because Spacey at that time would have maybe been in the ref a little bit before that, but he hadn't shot to claim to fame. He's 3 years before his incredible 95, resulting in his Academy Award win. So he was right on the come up too. So that was kind of like that passing of the torch moment between those two men.
The day I bought Ides of March at that secondhand store, right next to it was Glengarry Glen Ross. I bought that the same day.
I don't believe that.
And when
I don't believe you.
And when I brought them home, I decided to watch Glengarry Glen Ross first. So I saw that movie for the first time this year, and
maybe you'll make that list.
I watched it like back to back right away because it has a commentary on it. I was like, okay, let's listen to this. A fun fact about later on in their careers, Al Pacino would play the Jack Lemmon role on stage. because
Oh,
he's
yeah.
much later in the career, and that's something
Right.
obviously something he would have wanted to do. So it's a great movie for sure.
Nice.
Cool.
All right, we're gonna go to my number 4, and again, I don't know what list this would have gone on, and maybe like I don't want to say like action movies, because I don't know it would be my number 1 action movie, but like it's definitely up there. But this is a movie for me that totally changed the game for me. This came out in 2011. I don't know if I saw it in 2011. I think it came out. I saw it. It came to theaters here maybe a year or little bit after. And my buddy Ian had told me about this movie, that it was coming out, and he's like, "We need to go see this." So me and my buddy Ian went to Silver City, and we watched The Raid, and it's called Raid Redemption here in North America, directed by Gareth Evans. And this movie just, I sat there for the runtime, both me and him just looking at each other like, just how is this happening? And like I grew up watching a ton of kung fu flicks, a ton of action movies. I grew up through the 80s, so the height of action, phenomenon, the action movie phenomenon. Your Arnold's, your Stallone's, your Jean-Claude Van Damme's going into the 90s. This takes the action and the action movie to the next level, and I honestly, I don't even know where it goes from here, because The Raid took the action movie to heights that I had never seen before. And so this it came out of Indonesia. It's an Indonesian film. It introduced the world to Iko Uwais, who was a big star in Indonesia, obviously, but it's kind of making his way into there. Also, there's another guy who's in a lot of its same thrillers as I don't know how to pronounce his name, Yayan Rahoyan, and you would recognize him if you saw him. He has long hair, often goatee, and I'll show a picture of him. But the action in this movie, this is basically nonstop action. They give you just enough, about maybe 5-10 minutes of story at the beginning, just gives you enough that you care about the characters. And then they hit you right 10 minutes into the movie with the action, and it does not stop until the final thing. There's a couple of moments where it slows down, which is great because it allows you to catch your breath, because you're sitting there watching this thing and you're just like, I can't even breathe. This thing is going so insane. And it all culminates into one of the craziest fights. Raid 2 has probably arguably the better fight in it, the kitchen scene. But this fight here, which is the 2-on-1, that's the guy I was talking about, Yayan Rahoyan, in the middle there, playing Mad Dog, and the two brothers square off against him. And it's an unbelievable fight. And so I'm watching this movie. And every time I watch this movie, even now, I'm looking at this thing and I know that it's a movie. I know that these guys are it's all choreography, and that these guys are stuntmen. But I'm watching this and I don't understand how these guys did not die from what they're doing to each other and from what is happening. And like the Gareth Evans, whose direction in this and in Raid 2 got him basically a Godzilla gig. He just shoots the shit out of this thing. If the way the camera moves, it just follows the way it follows the action. It's constantly kinetic. It's just constantly moving. If guys will get kicked through the door, the camera will follow the body through the door. Like, I just don't understand. Again, I don't understand how they did this without guys getting like murdered, because the action looks so authentic and so brutal and so violent. It's just, I'd never seen anything like it. And to be honest, Raid 2 came out. Raid 2 has very similar stuff. I don't think I've seen better since then. A lot of these guys have gone on to make a couple more movies. There's Headshot and The Night Comes For Us with a lot of the similar guys. And they're both very good, but
Don't forget about their powerful performance in The Force Awakens.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Where they literally, you had the coolest stuntman on and you had them stand there and run away from a squid, and you're like, oh, That's what we did with the raid guys. Okay.
I know, yeah, it's very, very disappointing when they brought those guys on. So you have like I said, you have these movies, Raid and Raid 2, who set the new bar for action movies, and you can see the effect that they had. And the most clear one in that is the John Wick movies. You look at the John Wick movies, and they are very much doing a lot of what the Raid has done. So much so that in the newest one that just came out, that Yuyan Ruhun and another one of the guys do the choreography, and they are the two guys that Keanu fight in the building there, who are also from the Raid, and they're a fantastic fight in John Wick 3. It's like I said, I'm a big sucker for kung fu, for martial arts, and for me, there's nothing finer than this movie. It's the fight scenes are just astronomically good, and Raid Redemption.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think the biggest ones, because I was really, really, really into pods at this time, and I remember that the tea leaves were going when people were like acclaiming this, and then obviously you see it in the next year with Dread comes out, and it's a similar kind of violence. And then I was gonna say another thing,
exactly the same setup too, where they go into the building and they have to go from the bottom to the top to get to the
even
big bad.
season 1 Daredevil as well too.
Yes.
I mean the hallway, and that's what everyone still talks about.
Yep.
So you look at, and that's what everyone talked about at those times, those years. They were like, "This is great." Shades of the Raid 2 comes out. This, that. And then certainly the Wicks. And again, it was a game changer in films as reaching American audiences. So
great. Moving on to my number 3, right? I decided I was going to.
Oh yeah, this is 3. Yeah, never mind. Carry on.
Yes. For my number 3, I decided I was going to talk about and mention the number 1 old movie that I saw for the first time this year.
Ooh.
Like I mentioned, Glenn Ross is obviously a classic, and I only saw it for the first time this year. During my watch and rewatch of Ridley Scott's filmography, there are plenty of movies I'd never seen before and loved right after upon seeing them. But my number 1 pick, and I had to go back to make sure I saw it this year, and I was so happy it did because it's been on my mind the whole time. And I rewatched it the other day just so I can get a refresher for the show. It's an 80s movie. I told these guys that because they wanted to guess what it would be. And let's hear. Scott, what is it?
Is it I guess The Thing, because I know that was a big watch for you this year.
AB, what was it?
I have no idea.
You have no idea.
No.
But I know you just watched it like 2 months ago. So when
I did just watch it
this year. I'm like, oh, that probably nullifies it.
I did just watch it for the first time this year. The Thing, and my review of that movie was it is one hell of an appetite suppressant. An enjoyable movie for sure, but the absolute definition of a B movie. This one is not all that much greater, maybe critically, but certainly a B movie as well. My number 1 old movie that I watched for the first time this year is Bloodsport.
Wow.
I did not know that you just watched that for the first time this year. Yeah. That is amazing.
I saw it once 5 years ago, but I've only seen it once. But I was late to the party too.
I watched it for the first time in May, and then I rewatched it again just a few days ago. And it was going to be one of our drafts was going to be movies based on a biopic. And I was going to try and sneak this in here as well.
Biopic.
Yeah. I mean, okay. So Bloodsport tells the story of Frank Dukes, who is played by Jean-Claude Van Damme. He works for the American military, and they show a flashback of him being a kid. When he was a kid, him and his friends went to rob a neighbor and pick up a sword. And they hear somebody walk in, his buddies leave, and he's standing there with the sword. The owner of the house, Mr. Tanaka, talks to him about the importance of this sword and decides to train him alongside his son in the art of martial arts and specifically ninjutsu, maybe. Yeah. And so growing up from kids to adults, Tanaka's son pretty much uses Van Damme as his punching bag. That's what he calls himself. and he gets upset by that. Tanaka's son dies, and he's very upset about that because he was supposed to go on to the Kumite tournament, a full contact martial arts tournament held once every 5 years. Frank says, train me and send me, and I'll honor the legacy of your family. They decide to do that, and a wonderful training montage happens, concluding with him being blindfolded and serving Tanaka and his wife tea. It's the movie itself is ridiculous and hilarious, all in the most appropriate way, but hilarious nonetheless. He goes AWOL from the military, and he gets a flight to Hong Kong because that's where the Kumite tournament is going to take place. He meets up with another American, Ox from Revenge of the Nerds, who is a who you would think is a bar fighter because he's huge and he just hits really hard. He makes his Van Damme makes his way through the tournament to the finals, while at the same time running away from the MPs who are after him. One of them being Forrest Whitaker in a very early role for him. He makes it to the finals with where he fights probably the number one second fiddle in martial arts movies, Bolo Young, who
amazing.
is absolutely amazing. He looks like he's 400 pounds of pure muscle.
all in his chest.
All in his chest. But so light on his feet. It's terrific.
Yeah.
Van Damme wins the fight and is presented with a duplicate sword that he was caught stealing when he was a kid. So it comes full circle. And at the end of the movie, he boards a plane to go back and continue his military service. And when he does that, there's a title card on the screen talking about how this movie was based on the real life of Frank Dukes, who fought in a full contact Kumite tournament. His record is like 400 wins and no losses. And as I was reading that, I was like,
Goldberg numbers.
Yeah, for sure. And as I was reading that, I was like, really? This is, and I had to go research the actual Frank Dukes, who was a point for him, Canadian.
Yeah.
He did serve in the American military. He claims to have served in like black ops operations, just assassinations galore, and claims to be the first Westerner to compete and win and hold so many different records in this Kumite tournament, which he claims happened in the Bahamas, not in Hong Kong. And he told this story to a writer for Black Belt magazine. That got published. Somebody read that and said, this could be a movie, and it's based on a true story. So the movie itself is amazing, but the fact that this guy is telling these tales that it actually happened makes it another level of awesome.
Well, and
everything he says is absolutely ridiculous, and no evidence to the to prove it at all. To the point that
people fact checked it, and it was like, no, there's no way that could happen. Yeah,
and one of the first clues was would have been that his sensei Tiger Tanaka. Somebody said that's the name of a guy from a James Bond movie. Tiger Tanaka is one of James Bond's allies in For Your Eyes Only.
That's
or
so funny.
For You Only Live Twice, rather. But that doesn't change the fact that the movie is fantastic. And there's no need to say if you like martial arts, you should see this movie because you would have seen that movie. But if you like,
speaking of people who love martial arts movies,
but for like the younger generation and millennials and Gen Y who need to see something fantastic. The poster actually says based on a true story. I'm just seeing that for the first time. Watch this movie and enjoy. This is definitely one of those movies where you'll see somebody on YouTube react to. It's like, I'm watching Bloodsport for the first time. Watch me watch that movie. It's phenomenal.
Like I said, I grew up watching all in the height of action movies, and this is one that me and my dad went to see 6 times in the theater. The gas station was giving out 2-for-1 coupons whenever you did a fill up. So we had all these surplus of 2-for-1 coupons, and there's literally nothing else that came out around the same time. It came out in 88, right?
Yes.
88. So I was 11. And there was nothing else that we could go see. So we just kept going to see Bloodsport over and over again. And I loved it so much. Like literally, when it came out on VHS, I bought it. I watched it a ton. And I constantly quote it, the "Okay USA" and stuff like that. Just constantly quoting this movie. It is just a complete blast. It, like you said, it's completely ridiculous. It's super goofy. Especially the military police guys like Forrest Whitaker and his buddy there, chasing him around, and they're kind of like, "Okay, Frank, we'll let you slide this time." You're like, "Okay,"
and they get front row seats for the
they're just hanging out watching the Kumite. Like, no, okay, whatever. But yeah, it's just a blast. It's got so many great scenes. Him, breaking the brick scene is unbelievable. It's just a fun movie that it's got tons of rewatchability,
and was clearly the inspiration for video games, especially Street Fighter.
100%.
And I had another point that
also starred JSCVD. I'll say one thing. It's funny. I just talked about this movie. So this movie, they did a rewatchables. I've only seen it once. I saw it I think if honestly, as I was thinking about it, I think I saw it like 10 years ago at a buddy's. So I have not seen this movie enough to even remember it. I remember the eyes and stuff that's iconic. But so I've been meaning to rewatch it so I can redo the rewatchables episode of that. But it's funny. Really yesterday, I was talking about Forrest Whitaker, and Jordan, my brother-in-law, said the Bloodsport, and I went, "Oh yeah, okay," and I totally forgot, and I just looked. Side note, I just wanted to say about Forrest Whitaker's first 5 films are Fast Times, Color of Money, Platoon, Good Morning Vietnam, and Bloodsport. Those are his first 5. I'm going to be going down a rabbit hole and see whose first 5 films can beat those. But
in a non-star, in a non leading role, right? He's like sub characters in all of those movies.
Yeah, but just being in them, because no, there's no one who can beat those. That's great. But either cool. I just want to say so I'm gonna rewatch, and that'll be my rewatch for next year. But
nice,
cool. Okay,
Scott. Yes,
I'm so excited to get to my 3 guys. This is my favorite one on my list. I can't goddamn believe that we're gonna do this. I've been rehearsing how I want to present this to you guys, and I've been so excited. So this is not a number one. We're gonna veer off, and we're just gonna say this is a reflection for the past little bit. So through our episodes, and there's been a few things. I think in an episode a little bit ago, what have I said I love most in film? When films do something, I love, guys, when I see movies, I just love homoerotic undertones. I've said that. I've stated that. I've been on film.
Just call me by your name.
I thought about it. We'll go with movies that I thought about.
That's not undertones in that.
Yeah, there's no undertone about that.
Let's stay on track. There's not undertones in this one, guys. We'll get to that. We'll get to how I want to. I worked up a whole thing. So I thought, it's the reason why on Guilty Pleasures I had High School Musical 2 and I spotlit I Don't Dance. The that song itself kind of has some gay undertones. It's the reason why when I did Hitchcock's Rope and proclaimed it my favorite Hitchcock film, I love the gay undertones in that one. There's a lot of gay undertones in a lot of films. Strangers on a Train certainly as well too. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put something as kind of an encapsulation for something with the homoerotic undertones or even behavior in this film, but what to do. And I thought maybe I'll do Tango and Cash, right? We love Tango and Cash. maybe this for a while was Top Gun. I'm like, oh, we'll talk about how gay Top Gun is. I've never used Top Gun. That's one of my favorite films. The volleyball scene is great, right? And then I'm like, well, maybe I'll do something recent, like Call Me by Your Name or This Means War. I love This Means War with Pine and Hardy fighting over Reese, but they just want to be together, guys. I thought maybe I'll do The Lighthouse, guys. The Lighthouse is super gay. But then as I thought,
I just came in the mail today. Look at that.
We're all the movies I'm shouting out. But then I thought, you know what, guys? If you guys want to get nuts, let's get nuts. And if we're gonna talk about something gay,
my word.
Let's take it back to 1980s Cruising.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe I get 5 movies. I can talk about any 5 movies I want. and we're going to talk about cruising.
You're doing this strictly because of the rewatchables. This is just because of the rewatchables you're doing this movie. This
Guys,
is awesome.
I know. This is what we're doing. This is what we're talking about. Al Pacino plays a detective in New York. He's young. He's on the come up, and Paul Sorvino is his chief. And there's been gay murders going on, and this is at the start of the really flamboyant gay culture of the 80s, right, leading into the AIDS epidemic, and then Karen Allen's his girlfriend, and it's mainly them, and then some other guys that Pacino comes across, interacts with. And what it is Paul Sorvino wants Al Pacino, because he looks like a lot of the victims, to go undercover in the BDSM gay nightclub scene and try and smoke out the killer on who it would be. And it's intense. It's an intense film. There are lots of cutaway shots to sexual acts in these bars. It's like AB and I, when we saw Bohemian Rhapsody, I was like, this movie's kind of lame, except for the best scene in the movie is when Freddie Mercury's going through the bars to Another One Bites the Dust, and there's all this stuff going on. It's smoky haze. This movie is that scene over the course of the whole hour 40. And basically he connects with young gay men and ultimately interacts with the killer at the end, and that man is arrested for the crimes and the murders in the gay community, but not before, there's other deaths that, Al Pacino's flatmate, his apartment next door neighbor, he winds up dead. And, he most likely, the movie makes it look like he was killed by his ex-boyfriend, but there's a big internet Reddit thread that's Al Pacino was the killer of that too, which there's a lot cut out of this movie. Famously, there's 40 minutes that have been cut out and destroyed of pacing and graphic scenes to ensure that it could get an R and not an X rating. And so there's this whole internet subculture. So like AV said, the rewatchables touched on it.
Constantly.
I know, and as I've said, is I wanted to make sure I incorporated something with homo undertones. This is again not subtext. This is just overt text. But because it's also the film debut of Ed O'Neill, as you can see there, he plays one of the cops. He has one line, so this is Ed O'Neill's first film television debut. But homoerotic stuff's fun. Don't know why. Don't try to get inside this cuckoo brain. But that being said, for something that's like Homer, I like my beer cold, my TV loud, and my homosexuals flaming. My number 3 is Cruising.
It's funny because Cruising is a punchline for a lot of jokes and whatever. But man, it's a great film. Obviously, Freakin'. But to me, I really like this film. For obvious reasons that there's a ton of horror beats to this. You could borderline call this a horror thriller, with the killer being almost like a slasher kind of thing, and there's a lot of slasher beats.
There's a lot of beats, even in serial killer stuff. There's a lot of Seven, Cobra, anything like that. But
And Freakin's obviously fantastic at that. He knows the horror beats, and so when I watched it out of just because they were constantly talking about it on rewatchables, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna sit down because this is Freakin', because this is Pacino. I will watch this thing, and I really enjoyed it. It's actually
it is good, and it's intense. It's
film.
Good. It's good Pacino acting. I didn't do the audio commentary. There is a thing, if you do deep dive, that Freakin' gave, and it's 31 tidbits about the film. And I know the one thing is Freakin's really kicking himself because he thinks there's pacing problems. Obviously, that's what happens when you cut out 40 minutes.
Sure.
And the one thing is he really wanted Richard Gere for the lead role. And Gere wanted to do it. It's just that, obviously, in 1980, Pacino was a much bigger star. So he thought Richard Gere would have been perfect because Gere has that ambiguous sexuality. Clearly, what age of the best? Richard Gere's sexual preference, which again, he as rumors proclaim, can go both. But the studio fought for Pacino, and while Friedkin said that Pacino was a much better actor, he still thinks it would have been better with Gere. Gere and those extra 40 minutes added would have made it the movie he wanted to make. So.
And if it was Richard Gere, I might not have watched it because I'm like,
that's the thing. I mean, that's why studios fought for Pacino. He's just off
And,
of Justice for All and Serpico.
because like it was that combo, it was the Pacino freaking combo that got me, and even all these years after it came out, that was like, I can't deny the Pacino freaking combo. I want to check this out. So
This has been on a side list of mine for sure, because William Friedkin has a section on my shelf, but this is not added to it yet. But I'm
Homophobe.
sorry.
Homophobe.
No, but I'm pretty much sold. I mean, William Friedkin, cop movies, in the NYPD, which is an itch that I've been scratching with the rewatch of Law and Order I've been doing, and I'm going to be online later ordering this for sure.
A lot of Razzie noms for it.
And one of the things too that and like I love is 80s New York movies, right? It's like it's New York at its grimiest, right? And it's like, they had the tax credits of New York in the 80s, right? And then brought all these people in to film in New York because they wanted all this publicity, but that was when New York was like the shadiest and the grimiest, and like this is pure grimy New York. So that's one of the things I love on film, is like just the scummy New York,
an atmosphere that people crave to put in movies today. Like Joker was that New York, but they had to fabricate that.
Because New York is.
I almost put Joker on this list because I have a lot of thoughts about that film, and good and bad. And I almost thought about putting Joker because I want my thoughts on that film on record. Film. One last thing I will say about cruising, and before we get to AB, all-time great title, because it can relate to police cruising the beat and gay men cruising for sex. It's a great title.
For sure. Absolutely. All right. So this is one that I know what the number one would have been, because it was going to be a number one on a list we had, and that is for foreign films or subtitled films. This is a movie that I watched quite a few years ago, but it was when I had the flu. I had probably the worst flu of my life, where I was sick for like 2 or 3 days and just like bedridden sick. And I watched, I think 19 samurai movies over the course of 2 or 3 days. And this one is one that became my instant favorite, the instant favorite the second I watched it, because it was so different and so unique and just right up my alley. And it is still my favorite samurai film. It is from 1966, directed by Kihachi Okamoto, and it is The Sword of Doom. This movie is unlike a lot of samurai movies. Samurai movies, for the most part, have an honorable samurai, or samurais defending the honor. That's kind of what the samurai code, and they come in and have this thing. This is a samurai who is played by Tetsuya Nakadai, who's one of my favorites. He's not my favorite, but my favorite is in this movie. And so Tetsuya Nakadai plays this young samurai who is at this one school, and he's basically like the star pupil of the school. And this woman comes to him and said, "Please, you have a duel coming up with my husband. Please let him win, because he needs that in order to basically like graduate to become like a samurai." And so this Tetsuya says, basically says the indecent proposal kind of thing, like, sleep with me and I'll let your man win. And so there's this horrible scene where she ends up sleeping with him, and so they have their duel. He has this duel with her husband, and not only does he not let him win, but he kills this guy in the school in the duel, and he ends up killing this guy, and like on purpose, like it wasn't an accidental thing. Like he's like, not only am I not going to let him win, I'm going to kill this guy. And so she is now like dishonored. She has nowhere to go. She kind of like throws herself at him. And like this guy is just like the scummiest of scums, and so he just continues to train. He continues to like wants to be the best of the best. He wants to be the greatest swordsman in the land. He has this drive and ambition to be things, and so he becomes this basically the top of the top of swordsman. and he the whole while like it's just going to his head. And one day he comes across my favorite guy, which is Toshiro Mifune, who is an older samurai. He's my favorite Japanese actor. He's an amazing. He's in a lot of Kurosawa films, and he comes across him fighting about 12 guys and just destroying them. And he has this crisis of faith where he's like, this guy, I can tell that this guy is better than me. And basically, like from then on, the rest of this movie, he starts to lose his mind. And one of the things, you know, I've talked about in other films, is I love films about people, you know, slowly losing their mind or slowly, you know, going crazy over the course of a film and slowly descending into madness. And this is that movie where you have this person who has zero morals, who has zero, you know, he's basically like, just wants to be the best thing and doesn't care about anything other than being the greatest swordsman in the land. And he has this, like I said, crisis of faith. And so he just slowly starts going nuts, and he starts like killing people for no reason. And so much so that the shogun sends like hundreds of guys after him, and the final scene is basically him fighting, you know, hundreds and hundreds of guys, and it ends, you know, on a freeze frame, and you know he's going to die. There's as great of a swordsman as he is, there's nobody can defeat like 100 men single-handedly. And you know, you see him throughout the fight taking damage, and you know, ultimately he's going to die. But like the final scene is just unbelievable of him, you know, just laying it out there and taking on like, and you know, there's that title, the poster shot, and it's the Criterion front of the case is just him, the back of him walking with all these bodies. And that's just like one of the shots of that final battle is him just mowing through guys and leaving a trail of bodies as he's going through this forest. And just the look of this film and like the nihilism of this film, it just tickle me in a place that a lot of films don't. I just love it. And there's a lot that's taken from this film, and you know, recently we've had the season of Mandalorian, and they had the episode with Ahsoka with the burned out trees and the fog going over the burnt out trees. You can see that coming from a movie like this, where it has that aesthetic, where, you know, there's the forest with the fog over top of it, and the, you know, the hollowed out trees and that kind of stuff. And so when I saw that episode of Mando, I like, it was one of the things I, you know, just
episode.
Just going crazy over, like, and the whole episode was I was going crazy over everything. But that was one of the things, was like they clearly, it was inspired by samurai films, and I think for me, I think a lot of it was based off this one. So yeah, Sword of Doom. There's never going to be a samurai film that even comes close for me. It is just fantastic.
Stick.
Okay. That brings us to our number twos. Now, I made mention to these guys that I was going to do my number two was going to be my top 5 quickly done, honorable mention style, my top 5 most anticipated movies of 2022. Now, you guys said you might follow suit. Did you guys do that?
I did, but yeah, I made a slide. I got to fast forward my slideshow to get,
because it's your honorable mention, not your number 2.
Right.
Okay, no, that's fine. So my number 2, which is honorable mentions of, okay, the list, come on, bring it up. All right, this is not in a ranked order, this is in release order. So Operation Fortune is on the list. The last movie, the 3 of us and Mike got to see together in a theater, was a Guy Ritchie movie. I'm hoping this will be the first one the 4 of us get to see together.
One thing I noticed about this, though, I mean, he's obviously bringing Hugh back. Hugh looks great. I stepped down on the cast. Gentleman's Cast was A+. I'm like, I look at this and I'm like, well, it's Aubrey Plaza and like Carrie Ewells. I'm like, his last one had like McConaughey and Jeremy Strauss. Like, well,
Yeah,
that's the only thing for
true.
me seeing it is like the Gentleman's Cast was so much better, but I'm excited nonetheless. It's Guy Ritchie.
It's probably a Statham paycheck that's keeping the cast.
Yeah, no doubt.
The Batman.
yes, sir.
Absolutely. Batman fighting the Zodiac Killer. I can't wait. Top Gun Maverick.
If it ever comes out, do you think
Exactly.
it'll come out in
This is my
2022?
most anticipated movie for like 3 years
I
running.
watched
Yeah.
this trailer at 3 jobs ago.
Yeah.
I literally have a list of 2020 films. I mean, I wanted to see. It's in my film journal, and like that's on it. I saw it the other day and laughed. I was like, "This movie's never coming out. It's never seeing the light of day."
And I cannot wait. I'm going to see this in D-Box, where the chairs move. It's going to feel like Paramount Wonderland all over again. Yes, I cannot wait. Lightyear, the Buzz
Cool.
Lightyear origin story of sorts. It looks like Pixar's NASA movie, scratching all of my itches. And Babylon, Damien
Nice.
Chazelle's movie about the golden age of Hollywood. Big time cast. It might as well have just been called Oscar.
It's funny. So Babylon was my 5. I've replaced it right before this with something else. But man, I wanted to go for 10. Like we could have done this. This would have been great. There's like a Whitney Houston biopic, Bradley Cooper's follow-up directorial debut on Leonard Bernstein. It's great. And Babylon was my 6th. I just narrowed it. My number 5, I went with The Killer, directed by David Fincher. That's coming out, I believe, next November. Not much is known about it, but Fassbender and Tilda Swinton. The only reason I put it, David Fincher reunited with a script written by Andrew Kevin Walker. Last time they were together, 1995 7. So if they can recapture that, I am all in. My number 4, Antoine Fuqua is doing Emancipation for Apple TV. That's starring Will Smith. I'm very excited. He famously said he was never, ever going to play a slave. It's kind of partly the reason he turned down Django. He's back. It's a big movie. It's coming out next November, and there's a lot of Oscar buzz for that. My number 3, Nope. Jordan Peele's follow-up behind Get Out and Us. That's nothing's known except the poster dropped. That's starring Daniel Kaluuya, Stephen Yeun, and Keke Palmer. My number 2, Top Gun Maverick. If we ever see it, I got that. That's going to be that's most assuredly my number 2. And guys, I want to announce right here my number 1 most anticipated 2022 film, Creed 3,
For sure.
directed, making his directorial debut. They gave it to Michael B. Jordan, following in Sly's footsteps. And again, it attracted megastar Jonathan Majors will be playing the quote unquote villain. Nothing known.
Will
about that,
the belt return
Creed
for Creed 3? That's
all right.
I'm anticipating.
I got no anticipation or no things on. I also have Nope on mine. I have Doctor Strange, directed by Sam Raimi. Into Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse 2, obviously.
Part 1.
The Batman, like Matt's, and my number 1 is The Northman, which is the new Robert Eggers film. Robert Eggers did The Witch and The Lighthouse, which I said just arrived today. This cast is unbelievable, and I didn't want to spend a lot of time on those other ones because I want to spend some time on this one. So I'll break down the cast for you for this film. So you got Alexander Skarsgård as the lead, as the thing, and you have Anna Taylor-Joy. You have Nicole Kidman, Willem Dafoe, Ethan Hawke. Oh, and my favorite female artist, that would be Bjork, making a starring role in this, as well as a ton of a lot of great character actors in here. Anytime Robert Eggers or Ari Aster make a new film, those guys are just leading the pack as far as horror movies go, and I cannot wait to see what he does with that cast. And it's all it's Viking horror. I cannot wait for that movie.
Awesome.
Marvel movies, of course, would be on my list.
I don't want my list to see them all. I don't want my list to be like my 5 is Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Thor: Love and Thunder. Like I could.
The only reason why
Spider-Man.
The only reason why Doctor Strange made it onto my list is because I'm excited to see what Sam Raimi does.
I'm so excited for that, and
Marvel
like it's
stuff, of course.
Endless. Like you get excited and you think of it. You're like, okay, so You got the cameos. Now it's like there's rumors. Is Cruise gonna play Stark in a multi-universe thing like that was originally
Yeah, I
for
don't
super
think
fans
so.
in 07, the casting news? Is Bruce Campbell gonna play Tony Stark in some weird
Yeah,
thing? Like it's endless. It's you gave
that's the
Sam
thing.
Raimi
Like
the toolkit and said go nuts.
that's why like I'm more excited about that than I looked at all the other ones that are coming
It
out
was
next
my number
year,
one
and
of
I
all the
was like,
superheroes. We were in a group
and
chat.
I was like, by far, I want to see like what Raimi gets now that he has, like you said, Fee gives him, gives him the thing like, here, go nuts.
And
Like,
what's
you
great about that is
tell Raimi to go nuts. I'm like, yes, give it to
well, I
me.
mean, and I can't wait to hear because they are doing reshoots now. They're being coined as COVID reshoots. Is it? Did they see the first cut and go, this is way too much? I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out
Yeah.
come May. But the other thing, too, is now you look at Raimi and he's played in that big box studio film system before. He did the Spider-Man films. He had some trouble with 3. We all know that, and some interference. You don't bring him back. He doesn't come back unless he knows he's going to have carte blanche. It's so exciting.
Yep.
So,
yeah,
cool. Is that your 2?
That was my 2. Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. We all got to participate. So my number 2, guys, this is one. Now we get into really, really, really good and very, very, very special films. I don't know what list this would have been on ultimately. Maybe there's a few things as we get into the conversation. I don't want to tip it too soon, but quite simply, it was a film that I only wanted to, ironically, I only ever wanted to use it as a number 1. It's in my top 10 favorite films of all time. I almost used it somewhere for Mentors recently, but I knew it probably wouldn't have beat Whiplash just for the theme of Mentors on it. There's a few other categories that we've done where I could have had it, but it just didn't quite fit. I was really dying to, the closest it really came on a list was Needle Drops, because there's some incredible needle drops in this film. But ultimately that couldn't get on that list too. So I was always saving it for something. I just didn't know for what. And when you said miscellaneous films, I knew this was going to be my 1 or my 2. And what I am excited to discuss about this, I have a tattoo of Icarus. I love the story of Icarus. I love the story of hubris. I love the story of people whose reach exceeds their grasp, who are flying way too close to the sun, who have accumulated all this power and success and money, only to fall back to earth and almost rebuild themselves. The best athletes, the best actors, everyone else in that. And no movie that I've seen in my life encapsulates the story of Icarus for multiple characters than 1997's Boogie Nights. Pa! 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 I'm so excited to put this on. It's Paul Thomas Anderson's follow-up to Heart 8, which we talked about 2 weeks ago. I didn't want to tip my hands because I knew I had this at that time, and I was really excited to discuss Boogie Nights here. So a deep cast. It's Paul Thomas Anderson's magnum opus to the porn industry in the late 70s into the 80s, and it follows. I suppose the lead, Mark Wahlberg, playing Eddie Adams, who recoins himself as Dirk Diggler, but the kind of through line through it is Burt Reynolds in an incredible role, one of his last truly great film roles, which if you hear about it, he had to turn this down like 5 times, and he did not have a good relationship with PTA on set. He kind of disavowed it too, and there's some stories and some history. The best movies have great history behind it, and there's some stuff that this was his Oscar to lose, and it was a tough year. He lost this year to in Good Will Hunting to
Robin
Williams playing Sean, and that's a toss up either way. I said Sean McGuire is probably one of the greatest performances ever, but Jack Horner's so good as the through line as the porn director in this, and again he's the mentor to everybody as well too. But there's Heather Graham as Roller Girl, Julianne Moore, and then you get 2 great heat check performances by Philip Seymour Hoffman as Scotty. Hey Dirk. Hey Dirk, you like my clothes?
Yeah.
and John C. Reilly as Dirk's Mark Wahlberg's best friend in it. And again,
Chesty.
as the film goes, it's told, and it's Mark Wahlberg who's been gifted with an abnormally sized member, and he in this movie he's not our Icarus. He's our thick dick Icarus, is what I just coined this morning and said I'm going to use that.
Word.
But in it, he's just doing little things for guys, who want to watch him, and Jack Horner's Burt Reynolds character is gravitated by his personality and his youthful look, and then the fact that he's gifted beyond measure, and brings him into this life. And as the movie echoes, the 70s are great. 70s are incredible. The first third of the film all takes place in the 70s, and it's the rise. You know, it's everyone's rise. They're making lots of money. They're making good stuff. They're making porn with stories. And even Jack says in one scene is they make kind of like a Miami Vice style detective porn where he's like, this is the best thing I'll ever do. This is the best thing I'll ever direct. And, you know, they're all getting it. But then it's that party, New Year's Eve, 1979, when everything falls apart, when William H. Macy blows his brains out because his wife is
a tough scene,
screwing too many other guys. When Scotty J kind of comes on to Mark, and, you know, he accepts the award and thanks after, you know, he was so happy to be in it. And it switches to 80s and the wheels fall out from all of them. And you know, it's all drugs. It's all drugs related, as it always is. It's all, you know, addiction to cocaine. And Mark, you know, he gets in deep with John C. Reilly and Tom Jane. Tom Jane plays, you know, a drug dealer in here. And the song what I played there would have been my needle drop for Sister Christian and Jesse's Girl are two of the most incredible scenes when they go to rip off Alfred Molina's character, play Rahad Jackson, and and Molina in that, he's dancing, he's got the long robe on, and it's just great. This is one of the most like captivating rewatchable movies I've ever seen. It's about 2:45 and it feels like 60 minutes long, and there's some great stuff, and it's hard to believe like this is, you know, just the start of PTA's career. This is his second film and it's his first big mainstream hit. This is, you know, his debut essentially to mass audiences. And you see so much acting, you know, with Mark Wahlberg in the scene. It's my favorite scene in the film when Jesse's Girl's going and he's just staring off because he knows, you know, I used to have it all and I pissed it all away. And now I'm ripping off this rich guy with coke with these like the scumbag Tom Jane, who's a wild card. And it holds on his face for 1:10. And it's incredible as you just see him realizing that he's hit his rock bottom there. And again, I could sit here and talk for hours about how much I love Boogie Nights. But like I said, every character has thought out great arcs, stories. Don Cheadle, I didn't even touch on too.
I was just going to say, I was going to bring him up.
How he fits into, and he doesn't really have his place to go, and he's always changing his looks. It's so good. I could literally talk about this movie for 3 hours. If we did something, let's say, film set in the 70s, or, you know, films about films, this would be my one. I blow through my 3 to 1 in honorable mentions just so I could have all my time to talk about this, because quite simply, in my top 10, it's one of my all-time favorites. So I am so thankful that if we did miscellaneous films, if nothing, my number 2 is 1997's Boogie Nights.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Don Cheadle. I was going to bring up Don Cheadle because I love him as the stereo salesman, and he's always going on and on about hi-fi stereo. And like, you know, as a, you know, person who loves music and loves stereo equipment, that kind of stuff, those scenes always tickled me because I was
it's great too so when you look at Don's character, and he's the one who kind of gets through it mostly unscathed. Yeah. But there's a lot of nuance to it because you never see him have sex like the other characters. He's kind of removed from it. He doesn't fit in, and that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing about his character. He's always changing up his look. You know, he's got like the wigs and stuff, and then he gets to the track suits, and he's all white in the late 70s because he doesn't really know where he fits as a black man in this industry. And then again, ultimately, he's the one who gets, you know, he's kind of pretty much happy through the whole film. He has a clear idea what he wants. He doesn't get into the drugs, or he doesn't get into anything of the side stuff. He just says, this is what I want to do. I want to open a business, a sound business. This is where I know it's going in the 80s.
Which is why I love his character.
His incredible scene, too, where he gets the money as well in the robbery. And, you know, it's his facing down of it. But he's one of the best. There's 50 million things I can go on about why I love this film.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great film for sure.
Cool. What do you got, pal?
All right. My number 2 is one that made a list, but it never went to air. It was ones in our Handshake films. This is a movie that is a movie that, you know, when you talk to me about movies that hit all the right notes for me, and I've hit on a couple of them already. This is a movie that ticks all of the horror boxes for me. I haven't really touched on a horror movie yet. This is going to be my horror movie of this list because it literally checks every box of horror. And that is also from 1985. I had a previous 85 on here, directed by Stuart Gordon, and it is, it will come up. Oh, Reanimator. starring Jeffrey Combs as the title character, Reanimator Herbert West. It is like the poster says here. It is an HP based on an H.P. Lovecraft story of Herbert West, the Reanimator, and it basically is a horror comedy that and horror comedies can be tough. They're either too much comedy or they're or it's not funny and has horror. This one is the perfect balance of it is a straight up horror movie and it ticks the like I said, it ticks the box of body horror. It has got some incredible body horror in it. Herbert West is a student who comes up with this reagent which brings dead things back to life, and so he starts experimenting. He starts with a cat, and uh, the music there play on the Psycho music, obviously, and they talk about that. That is by Richard Band, who famously likes to rip off Hitchcock and Hitchcockian themes. Uh, so you got Herbert West here, who, spoiler alert, is got the head of his rival, which is a professor at the school, which is played by David Gale, which is Professor Hill, and that is his body, Professor Hill, in the background, coming to attack him. And so it's got a lot of great characters in here. Bruce Abbott plays his roommate / partner, who is the straight man to Herbert West, who is helping him in his shenanigans of trying to get this reagent to work properly, and his fiance, who's played by the very lovely Barbara Crampton, who is a horror horror royalty in a ton of great horror movies, and she's fantastic in this. Who's playing the victim a lot in this, and of course, like I said, Professor Hill played by David Gale. And so this movie has everything in there. You have zombies, you have body horror, you have reanimated cats coming and attacking people, and a lot of it is played for comic beats. It is a very funny movie, but there's also, it doesn't shy away from the horror elements of it. It's just a movie that holds up on rewatch over and over again. It's consistently funny and consistently just gruesome for me. Like the gruesome scenes get me every time. It's just it's a movie that I came to probably late in the game when I was in college, and just fell in love with everything about it. I'm a big zombie movie fan, and people are like, "Oh, you like zombie movies? You got to check out Reanimator." I'm like, "Okay," and that was it. Like lifelong Reanimator fan from then on. I own a hat which I can't find. I
Oh,
love
I
this
was just gonna say I've seen the hat a million times. It's somewhere
Yeah.
else. Isn't that you
No,
had
it's
a
somewhere
million
here. I
times?
don't know where it is. I can't find it. But anyway, Reanimator is one of my all-time favorite horror movies. And it just, again, like I said, ticks every single box for me, and I just love it.
You should have said that as Stefan when it's like, this movie has it all. You have to say it like Stefan from SNL. This movie has it all. There's heads severed, a goat.
Okay. So with that, we'll begin the ending here with my number one. And for my number one, I decided to pick my favorite movie of this year. This may be premature. We are recording this. It's still the middle of December, and there's plenty of movies to see, especially with award season thrust upon us. Haven't seen Spider-Man yet. Haven't seen Licorice Pizza yet. Those haven't been released.
Speaking of PTA,
haven't seen The King's Man yet. That was one of
Mhm.
my most anticipated movies for the last 2 years as well.
It ain't it. The King's Man will not be your best movie of the year. I mean, come on.
I didn't say not the best. My favorite movie of the year.
Yeah.
But of the movies I've seen, this was my favorite of the year. Dune, Denis Villeneuve's
thank
Dune.
goodness. Yay. I love this right now. Thank you, sir. Oh, yes. Let's talk about Dune. Can we talk about Dune?
I went into this pretty much fresh. I think I saw the first 5 or 10 minutes of David Lynch's version of Dune. I think
Yeah.
I just had it on while I was getting ready to leave the house, and then I never looked back. So I went in with this pretty much knowing nothing, and as I was watching, I was like, "This is fantastic." Pretty much looking for all of the Oscar nominations it's going to get. When the House of Gucci trailer dropped, I was like, okay, well, just hand them the best costume award now, and hand them the best production design award now. And then when I went to go see Dune, I was like, they are going to have to fight
Yeah.
like
Dune's gonna be the Mad Max. I think it's just gonna clean up
Godzilla
all
versus
that.
Kong fight for those production awards. I think.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to help me with names here, AB. Timothy Chalamet plays
Paul
Paul
Atreides.
and treaties. I
Paul
know that
Atreides,
too.
and that's another part of the story that I love in movies when the prince like ascends to the throne of his
Yeah.
father is a story in movies I really like. Now his father is just a duke of what planet are they from originally?
They're from
Arrakis?
no, Arrakis is
No,
where they go as
they
Dune.
go?
They are from Kella. Oh my gosh, this is embarrassing.
Okay.
Caledon.
You say, and they moved to Arrakis to take over the spice mines of Arrakis and try to bring peace amongst the people they bring in and the natives. What?
The natives, the Freeman.
The Fremen.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
One of my favorite scenes in the movie was when they first arrived to Arrakis, and Jason Momoa, who has been on the planet for a while, searching for the Fremen, has found them and has kind of been accepted by them as such. And he brings the leader of them, played by Javier Bardem, into
Oh man.
the meeting room. And one of the first things Javier does is spit on the floor or
Yeah.
on his or on
On the ground. Yeah.
Oscar Isaac's desk or whatever, and the guards around him are ready to fight, and Jason Momoa has to calm them down and and essentially say to them in speaking to Javier, is like, "Thank you for your gift of moisture,
Yes.
which you have excreted upon us, because Arrakis is a desert planet and water is certainly hard to come by. So to waste it is almost blasphemous."
Yeah.
The movie is, I think, officially not officially called Dune Part 1
Mhm.
because people didn't really know that until they saw the movie, and that Part 1 came up under the title, and Part 2 was instantly greenlit. And I can't wait for the second one. That's going to be in a couple of years. It certainly won't be 2022, but I'll certainly be seeing that one opening night.
And there's going to be a lot more action in part 2. People are like, a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people's stupid complaints that it's very slow. It's very, it's a slow burn, all that stuff. And people are like, oh, it's so slow, it's so talky. Part 2 is going to have a lot more of the action. But like to me, this is a movie about political intrigue, and it's based on novels based about political intrigue between houses, and it's just. To me, this I've been a big fan of the book since I was a kid. I love the original movie, but like it's a tough watch because unless you read the books, you don't really know what's going on. Does a lot better job of taking out all the convoluted stuff and giving you just what you need in order to follow the story. And so you can watch this without having to know anything about it, going in. Which is nice, but it also has what I love about it is it has a ton of Easter eggs in there for people that know the book and know the novel. There's tons of shots that Denis Villeneuve set up, like the bullfighting stuff, and there's a ton of like little stuff that are in the background of a lot of stuff that's you don't really. They kind of make comments about the bullfighting stuff, but you don't really understand the significance of it unless you've read the book. And so it's like stuff like that. It's like that's little nods to the fans, right? And it's not overly done. It's not like fan service. It's like just small little things like that. That's just like just chef's kiss.
And there are two major roles that are yet to be cast for
Yes.
the second movie. The Emperor Shaddam the Fourth, who was
Yeah.
played by Jose Ferrer in the David Lynch version, and then Fayed say it
Rotha.
Fayed
Rotha.
Rotha, who was played by Sting in the David Lynch version.
So
And,
I'm so curious who they're gonna get to pay
Right.
Fade, because like that is such a key role, and like that's the rival to Paul. He's gonna have to be someone who's a little older than Charlemagne, because he's like he's supposedly in Charlemagne's, Paul is in his teens in this one, and Roth is in his like mid 20s, and it's like peak physical thing.
It's
So
gonna be Harry
I mean,
Styles, guys. It's gonna be like,
It
what
could
are
be.
we
And
kidding
Harry Styles
ourselves?
would not be that
It's
bad.
gonna be Harry
Like,
Styles.
somebody
He's
who's,
got
like,
acting
very
chops,
beautiful.
and it's
Somebody
gonna
who's
be Harry
be
Styles.
beautiful. It's both like very physically beautiful and very vain. So Harry
It's
Styles
going
would
to be
work.
the MCU's own Harry Styles.
Oh my god! Stop it! Don't remind me. Yeah. Oh man.
It's great. It's a great choice. Yeah. Awesome.
Let's keep talking about Dune. No, I'm just kidding. Love it. That's a fantastic choice, Matt. I'm so happy you picked that. That's my number one movie of the year as well.
Cool. Probably not mine. But that's great. I don't know how to set my number one. I'm so happy to do this. It could have come up on a bunch of lists. It's just come more shocking that it didn't. I mean, I kind of included it not only for my purchase for the film, but I know all three of us too, and it's certainly going to be a very special conversation. I think I've very much been looking forward to it. I haven't had it on any list or any of the films subsequently in the franchise. It's funny that they never really came up on any, and I could have kind of put some on, and I could have, but I knew it wasn't going to do justice. So I just wanted to make sure that at this opportunity, this chance, if I was going to go out with a number one, it would have to be something that would be incredibly worthy, not only as a film that is fantastic, a film that I have not used yet, but a film that we all love and that kind of transcends the film genre upon itself. And for my number one, I'm more than proud than anything to put 1977 Star Wars, and a film that inspired countless films and certainly inspired the works of Frank Herbert, who wrote Dune. And I mean, I don't need to spell out the similarities between what Star Wars did and Dune does now as well, 50 years later. It's
And
very
what
similar.
the sequels could have
story.
looked like.
Of course. So I never had put anything on our handshake films. I put Return of the Jedi only because it's my favorite of them. I was able to put Luke Skywalker as my favorite character. I was able to put Luke Skywalker's lightsaber as my favorite prop, but ultimately Revenge of the Sith was not able to crack revenge films, and Empire Strikes Back. I don't know if I put on sequels because I didn't want to use it if it was going to be a 5 or a 6, because subsequently I had some more on there and I didn't want to use it just to use it. And while you got to use it last year for movies from your birth year, 77, Mike got to use Empire Strikes Back for 80. I was like, man, I'm going to use a Star Wars next year. And I didn't even put Phantom Menace on my guilty pleasures list. I wish I had. But regardless, for this, I will be putting my number one on Films to Talk To as a movie that could have been number one on any list. And I'm glad that it is. It's on this one. It's iconic as far as films and what I talked about. The best films are not only incredible on the camera, but they have incredible behind the scenes stuff. And I was able to use the documentary on the documentary one, which is the making of the original trilogy too, that's on Disney Plus.
Empire of Dreams.
And yes, and that was my number 2 or 3 on documentaries. And in it, all the incredible stuff. How they shot in Tunisia, the earthquake, the tornado that ripped through it all and tore down all the sets. How Peter Cushing wore slippers because the boots were uncomfortable. How Harrison Ford was cast as Han Solo, beating incredible A-listers because he was a carpenter working on the door, who was George's friend, who was reading who needed somebody to read lines with all the Princess Leia's. It's incredible stuff as you read these stories and the behind the scenes stuff as it set up film, not only films upon it, but the films that followed it as well too. We're still in the universe. 2022 is going to be one of the biggest years as far as fleshing out the universe. There's 3 shows coming, no films. They've kind of gotten out of that, but the shows are coming. Book of Boba Fett starts on the 29th, my birthday. Then we're going to Kenobi and Ahsoka, all come next year. So it's an incredible year for Star Wars fandom.
Is the Acolyte coming out next year as well?
I mean, what's
that? 2022? The Acolyte?
I don't know.
Oh, I think that's
what
coming
is
out
it?
next year. It's a show, another show.
Yeah.
It's based in the Old Republic. It's one of the Old Republic shows.
I don't think so, only because they're casting right now for. I'm gonna be honest with you. They're casting right now for Ahsoka, so that's the next one that's filmed after Kenobi. Kenobi's done. Ahsoka, I don't think it'll be coming next year, because then there's also, they said the third season of Mando is coming at the end of next year too. So I don't think it'll be 2022.
And Cassian still has to.
Yeah, they haven't even
Amazing.
started that. That's what I'm saying. Like, they just cast Sabine Wren for Ahsoka. We're talking too much about the shows, guys. I get a very limited amount of time.
Well, yes,
But I want to talk
there.
about 1977's. George Lucas wrote it. We know the whole story. We know his dog. It's Chewie. It's incredible. And as far as it goes, the Brian De Palma on the screen crawl, the fact that they can even include a screen crawl, the fact that the movies come out now and they're exempt from it. If another movie has that, we hate it instantly. But for Star Wars, we can't wait to see what's on the crawl. This movie invented so much for cinema and changed it all. We listen to countless podcasts that break it down. Star Wars Minute is one of the best ones to listen to go through it. There's tons of fandom and sites that we go to because we want to be part of this universe. So it all started here. 1977 Star Wars. It's what we've all bonded over as well too. Certainly AB and I, as well as when they rebooted with the new trilogy as well too. That was a very exciting time when we were friends and we talked about it and the castings, and ultimately the internet is very divided on those. But again, what we can all decide and agree on, if nothing else, is that the three of us are big Star Wars fans. We have a large collection of Star Wars stuff. We all admire each other's Star Wars stuff. And we will be Star Wars fans. So my number one on this list, to tie up everything I've done before it, I want to put Star Wars 1977, subtitled later A New Hope.
Fantastic.
I don't know what else to say, because if I start, we'll
Then
just
don't
talk
say.
about everything
Yeah.
else.
I know, and that's the fun thing.
Yeah,
And we're
I was just gonna be like-
but let's not even continue it, because we want the viewer, all four of you, to know that the conversation will continue in our private group chat.
Yeah.
I'm the only one who talks in a galaxy far, far away, but hopefully my friends will accompany me as we discuss more Star Wars and Marvel stuff in that. But that conversation will happen off camera, and that's the beauty of me putting this movie at one, because it's all of our loves together.
That's true. All right, guys, we're here. We're here at my number one. I'm gonna zoom right in on my face for my number one.
What
This
a
is
flex.
this is a movie that would not fit on. I don't even know what list this would fit on. It is a movie that kind of defies all genres. It is a movie that basically sums up a lot of my childhoods. It rivals Aliens for the movie that I've seen the most. Is a movie that I absolutely adore. I have the Funko Pops to my right.
It's not Star Wars.
Yeah, it is not Star Wars, guys. We are going to shake the pillars of heaven. We are going to shake the pillars of heaven.
2000s X-Men?
No, guys, we're gonna go to San Francisco. We are going to in 1986 and have a little adventure courtesy of John Carpenter.
Oops.
Oh, geez, a little too far. And we're gonna take a little trip, a little Big Trouble in Little China.
That's great. I think of you when I watch this
1986.
movie. I'm glad.
Big Trouble in Little China is a movie that John Carpenter basically threw a ton of stuff at the wall in this movie, and it all works for me. It's a big mess. It is it is super goofy. It is super crazy, but it all works for me. And so when you watch this movie, what he's trying to do here, and it takes a lot of heat, for, the whole thing of racist stuff and white savior, but it's all wrong. People who say that it's all wrong, because Jack Burton. This movie is about Jack Burton. Jack Burton is a truck driver who is delivering meat to Chinatown in San Francisco, and he gets thrown into this adventure. And so what is great about this movie is that Jack Burton thinks he is the hero of this story, but he is not. Jack Burton is the sidekick in this story and doesn't know it. And the real hero of the story is played by Dennis Dunn, who is Wang, and was Wang's story. But Jack Burton doesn't know that, and so it is flipping the stereotype that has been what Hollywood is known for of the white savior with the minority sidekick who does goofy stuff and is kind of there as the joke. In this movie, Jack Burton is the joke of this film. And Jack Burton, is got the bravado, all the it's typical like white American male. You got all the bravado. He's going in guns blazing, and he is the butt of things. And one of the running gags in this movie is that he gets in all these fights and loses all these fights. And even when he wins the fight, it's by like sheer luck. And oftentimes, it get like even I'll spoil it. He gets to the final battle. He has his Mack 10 machine gun. He fires into the ceiling right before the big battle is supposed to happen, and he knocks himself out with debris from the ceiling, and he's unconscious for half of the fight. And so you have Dennis Dunn here, who you think is going to be the typical Asian sidekick to Jack Burton, and he is the star. He's the hero. He is doing all the fighting. There's a funny scene where there's a whole bunch of guys, and Jack Burton is kind of trying to figure out his gun, and he's off to the side. And while he's trying to figure out his gun, Wang, played by Dennis Dunn, kicks the shit out of the 5 or 6 guys. They're all down and out. Jack Burton jumps in and goes, "Ha!" And they're already all down on the ground, and even before he goes in to fight. And so you have basically one of the things that I dispute the whole racist thing about it is of all the movies in the 80s, this has the most Asian people in the thing. There is literally 3 white people in this whole movie, and you're looking at 2 of them on screen there, Kim Cattrall and and Kurt Russell. And then there's another played by Kate Burton, who plays a reporter. All the rest of them are all played by Asian actors, including I showed in the last slide Victor Wong, who shows up in a ton of stuff. He's amazing in stuff like Gremlins and that kind of stuff. He's
Three
Ninjas. He's a great character actor, but there is only one. There's obviously the 3 storms, which are incredible. Obviously lightning, which is my inspiration for my fun here. It's the we talked about our Street Fighter influence earlier. This is the number 1 influence on Raiden. The character of Raiden is absolutely designed off of the lightning character of the 3 storms here of Big Trouble in Little China. And you have one of my all-time favorite character actors in James Hong, who owns this movie as Lao Pan. One of my favorite villains in any movie is Lo Pan. He plays 3 different versions of David Lo Pan: the old creepy old man with the old man makeup, the young version, and then this version that you see before you, with like the wizard version of Lo Pan. And he just is chewing it up. One of the things I love, James Hong, he's been in just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of movies, and whenever he shows up, you were like, oh, it's that guy. He's in Blade Runner, he's in tons and tons of movies that you see him in always, and he's just always giving his 100% in every movie that he's in. He's just a fine human being. He's still working. He's 92 years old right now, and he's still working. He's still appearing in movies. And like he still goes to Comic-Cons, and he's in a wheelchair. They wheel him out and like get pictures taken with people. It's just this movie is just a treat, and like it is one of those movies where I'll put it on, and forever quotable. It's got all the Jack Burton goofy quotes where he's like, Jack Burton would say at a time like this, and the constant gag was when people are like, who, and which furthers the thing that he doesn't understand that he's not the hero in this. Like people are, who's Jack Burton? And he's like, Jack Burton, me. And they're like, it's just a fantastic a film that is was constantly on in my childhood on Saturday afternoon TV, and whenever it was on, I never missed it. I always watched it. It's got, like I said, like I've said with a lot of these films that I've talked about today, it ticks off a ton of boxes for me. You have your martial arts, you have your horror, you have Kurt Russell just being amazing, like ready to make fun of himself on top of being like doing his best John Wayne in this. And so one of the things I thought about during this last rewatch, I rewatched this again and loved it, was that this character of Jack Burton inspired a whole line of like people now, and the number one of it actually came to me this week when I watched it, is for the character in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes,
is your
I was
boy
just about to say Peter Quill.
Star-Lord. Peter Quill is playing Kurt Russell as Jack Burton. He is 100% a Jack Burton character, which I thought about that and I looked into it, which is the number one reason why Kurt Russell appears in Guardians 2 as Ego.
It's great.
He saw Guardians 1. They contacted him about it and were like, hey, we don't want to be in this movie. And he watched Guardians 1. And he's like, hey, this guy's doing, Chris Pratt is doing me. This is my character, Kurt Russell. And I was like, man, this is fantastic. And so, Kurt Russell and John Carpenter, they got a bum rap back in the 80s when all these came out. The Thing was a flop. Big Trouble in Little China was an epic flop. It didn't even make back its money at all, and the studios basically didn't know what to do with it. He kind of got put in director prison for a little while. And when I rewatch this thing, it ages so well for me. And like people, again, people can say the racist stuff aside. It's not racist. It's timeless. You watch it and it ages so well because it could be at any time. It could be a lot of 80s movies that look very much 80s. This feels so fresh and so great. Yeah. I love Big Trouble in Little China. There's been the rumors circulating about the reboot with The Rock. I pray that never happens because you don't need it. There's only one Big Trouble in Little China. This is it. It broke the mold because there's never been anything like it before or after it. It's a one of a kind. It's a one of a kind filmed where you have all these love letters to martial arts films, as well as the John Wayne stuff, and like it's borderline has the Western kind of feel to it. Originally, it was supposed to be a set in the Wild West and have the Asian mysticism thrown into the Wild West when it was originally brought out as a script, and that's why John Carpenter latched onto it because he always wants to make a Western, but he read the script and was like, no, this sucks. So he had guys rewrite it, and this is what they came up with it. And I this is one of my all-time favorite films that I can watch for the rest of my life and never ever get tired of. I love Big Trouble in Little China.
I'll just speak briefly about my favorite scene in the movie is when they're walking through the sewer, and then out of nowhere, a sewer monster comes through, puppet sewer monster comes in, takes a guy, pulls it back. Victor Wong then takes a little marble bag, pours like some tiny grenades or whatever, throws them into the pipe. There's an explosion, and Kurt Russell just goes, "What the hell is that?" Victor Wong responds with, "Don't worry, it won't bother us again." Yeah. And they continue their journey. Any other movie I see that scene in, I would have been like, that's an unanswered question. I hate this movie. But it works so well because of all of the ridiculousness that comes previous and after that scene.
Yeah, well, there's even the giant monster, the big giant hairy monster that's never explained, never really talked about, and appears at the end. You never really explain any of that. It's just kind of like there, and this is just like it's all happening. And again, like you said, pointed out that Jack again is constantly like, what is happening? What is going on?
He has no idea what's going on.
He has no clue
ever.
What is going on at any point. At one point, like when he comes in to save a bunch of people, they're like, how are you going to get us out of here? And he literally says, I have no idea. And like, he has no clue what he's doing. Again, furthering the point that he is an idiot. And like it's funny because they have a comic series that follows. It originally was going to be a Big Trouble in Little China 2 setup, and they put it into comic form. And so the comic form has Lopan, and Lopan is in the hell of people killed by idiots. And which I when I read that, I was like, that is brilliant, because I was like, it furthers again, Jack's bright shining moment when he kills Lopan. It's all in the reflexes.
Yeah,
it's all in the reflexes, right? He's shocked when he does it. He's like, "What? Oh, it's on." He's like, "Aha! It's all in the reflexes," right? He basically, like, the first time he throws it, he misses him by like 7 feet. It's this again just hits every beat for me. It's hilarious. It's got great action. It's got great practical effects, and it's just forever rewatchable.
With that is our list for our finale episode. As we approach the 2-hour mark,
we're back. 2 hours is cool again.
We thank everyone for holding on this long. If you've watched it in sections, that's fine too, as long as you made it through.
Thanks, Kim.
To the end.
No one in my life has ever watched one.
She will watch this. She's watching all of our previous episodes.
Well, don't tell her it ends.
Yeah, she already did. She already knows this is the end.
Well, take us home. We're almost there.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Please continue to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, because new content will be coming in to replace this show. I guarantee it. For Scott, for AB, my name is Matt. We have enjoyed doing this for the 2 years or so that it's been going on. We'll say so long.
He said we do it until COVID was not a thing anymore, and now, as we all know, COVID is completely eradicated, and it's not a thing. So now our work here is done.
Even though it says goodbye back here, we'll just say so long, because never say never. We might be back. Until then, thanks for watching.